Homelessness is a pervasive problem in Los Angeles, and it seems to be getting worse. The 2017 Greater Los Angeles homeless count found that homelessness increased by 20% from 2016 to 2017 in the city. There are now an estimated 34,189 homeless people living in the city of LA. Even more disturbingly, homelessness increased dramatically among vulnerable groups, including transition-age youth, unaccompanied minors, and veterans. The 2017 Greater Los Angeles homeless count gathered demographic information on who is homeless in Los Angeles for the first time. But the question remains, who is homeless? Most homeless people are individuals over the age of 24. 31% of homeless people in LA are chronically homeless, which means they've been homeless for a period of 12 consecutive months, or 4 occasions totaling 12 months over a period of 3 years. 33% of the population has a serious mental illness, 20% have a substance use disorder, 19% have a physical disability, and 36% have experienced intimate partner violence. To make matters worse, 3 out of 4 homeless people have no shelter and live on the streets. On a national level, this is an incredibly low proportion of shelter beds to homeless people. Homeless sweeps, or the removal of homeless encampments and belongings, have increased 7-fold since 2015. But why has homelessness become such an intractable problem in Los Angeles? Let's further explore some of the situations that may lead to homelessness. LA is one of the most unaffordable housing markets in the country. The United States Department of Housing and Urban Development defines affordable housing as housing that costs no more than 30% of a family's gross income. Unfortunately, over 60% of tenants in Los Angeles pay more than 30% of their household income for rent. Further, over 30% of tenants are severely rent burdened, paying more than 50% of their income for rent. The California Housing Partnership course stated that median rent, adjusted for inflation, increased more than 30% from 2000 to 2015, while median income remained stagnant. Individuals with strong social networks and steady incomes can become homeless if a major health issue or family emergency arises. Often, these homeless experiences are short-term and transitional, especially for families. Intimate partner violence also causes homelessness. To reiterate, 36% of homeless women in Los Angeles, according to the 2017 count, had experienced intimate partner violence. In 2015, 21% of women in Los Angeles identified intimate partner violence as the direct cause of their homelessness. According to the 2017 Greater Los Angeles homeless count, 33% of the homeless population has a serious mental illness. Further, 20% of the homeless population has a substance use disorder. 7% are veterans who may be experiencing PTSD. In fact, homeless people have twice the rate of serious mental illness as the general population. However, while these issues contribute to homelessness, a more proximate cause is lack of low-income housing. Unlike the general population, people with substance abuse and other mental health issues cannot easily access housing due to income deficits, stigma, and the need for a higher level of services. Now that we've examined some of the situations that can result in homelessness, let's explore laws that pertain to homelessness in Los Angeles. Homeless people in Los Angeles increasingly find themselves faced with legal concerns. In LA, homeless people can pitch tents in public spaces between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. Homeless people who fail to remove their tents after 6 a.m., however, risk receiving a ticket. As of February 2017, homeless people in LA can sleep in their cars on some of the city's streets. Yet while the law stipulates that 50% of city streets must permit car sleeping, the city has designated only 10% of its streets for this purpose. While bills aimed at decriminalizing homelessness have been introduced to the California Senate, they have stalled or failed to pass. Opponents of decriminalization efforts argue that homeless people are a threat to public safety and negatively impact neighborhoods. Further, they believe that decriminalization will reduce the incentive for homeless people to seek out permanent housing. As it currently stands, homeless people are denied the right to move freely and rest in public spaces. So what can be done to reduce homelessness? Unfortunately, in Los Angeles, there is a huge disparity between need and available resources. While public agencies nobly emphasize permanent housing and rental subsidies over shelter space, the city's lack of funds to support these programs leads to a huge amount of street homelessness. For instance, after 13 years, LA is finally accepting new applications for Section 8 subsidy vouchers. However, while 600,000 are expected to apply, only 20,000 vouchers are available. An additional 35,000 will be placed on the waiting list, but it could take decades for additional vouchers to become available. Ultimately, the rising number of homeless people in the city dramatically outpaces housing resources. This translates to more people living on the streets. According to the Coalition for the Homeless in New York City, there are 3 evidence-based programs that are effective at ending homelessness: federal housing assistance, permanent supportive housing, and Housing First. Federal housing programs are one of the most effective housing-based solutions to homelessness. These programs include Section 8 and public housing and allow households to pay only 30% of their income towards rent. On the other hand, permanent supportive housing provides housing for individuals with severe mental illness, HIV and AIDS, and other mental and physical health problems. This type of housing provides tenants with on-site services such as psychotherapy and routine medical treatment. Further, several studies have found permanent supportive housing to be less costly than emergency care. Housing First is an evidence-based approach to street homelessness that focuses on screening people in as opposed to screening them out. There are few requirements to participate in the Housing First program. For example, sobriety is not a requirement. Neither is participation in other forms of supportive services, such as case management, though these services are offered to Housing First recipients. Some permanent supportive housing facilities have used Housing First models, while others have not. Studies have once again found this approach to be far less costly than shelters, hospitals, or other institutions. However, there is no consensus regarding the best homelessness intervention. In one article, Bassick et al. Evaluated 6 studies that provided housing interventions, which included Section 8 vouchers and other types of housing subsidies to homeless families. The study concluded that the housing interventions improved the housing and employment conditions for the families immediately. However, many of the families analyzed in the study did not earn a living wage, which put their housing at risk. The authors therefore concluded that long-term employment and residential stability were not achieved by the housing intervention. Ultimately, more research is needed. While Housing First approaches help alleviate homelessness, structural problems such as poverty and lack of affordable housing remain. In LA, for example, only 300 units of permanent supportive housing are built every year. Let's hear what 2 community leaders have to say about homelessness in Los Angeles.
So as a property manager and developer, how do you think members of your community should combat homelessness in LA?
I think we need to build for the problem instead of trying to incorporate the problem into what we're building. Projects that include an affordable housing component into an otherwise all-encompassed development often fail to meet the needs of the people that they claim that they're going to help, and produce more segregation than integration. I think we need to specifically take the resources that we're now dedicating in Los Angeles and the will and the desire that developers and those of us in the community have to build affordable housing that is made for transitional living and the things, including the amenities, services, and supports that people who are coming in off the streets and back into the system need.
And we have as a university, we have a special place that no one else occupies. So the first thing we have is a big voice. When the university speaks, it commands attention. And so it's a perfect place to convene people, to meet around co-design programs, analysis of issues. We're holding on a faith summit with the Archbishop of the Greek Orthodox Church and others coming. So we can bring the most important people to kind of a neutral center and create a conversation nobody else can. So that's really important. The second thing is we have our own students who are homeless and hungry. We have an obligation to them. The third thing is we have research and, more important, innovation. So our college, our School of Engineering can print, using a 3D printer,
Mm-hmm.
they can print a house in 5 hours. They know how to do this. This is a site where people invent things like
Yeah.
this. We have also the pipeline. We are the educational pipeline that produces the students, produces the graduates who will work in these funded programs that we now have. So pipeline is incredibly important. And then finally, the kind of good neighbor idea, support to the priorities for the city of Los Angeles.